Good evening, everybody. And it is time once again for quantum spirituality. And this is part of the Three Chord Live, which consists of Bill Thrasher, Michelle Brown, Tammy Wilson, Kyle Butler, Catherine Toon, Mike Zinker, and yours truly. And also part of the Global Online Ministry Alliance, which is Len Bennett Jr., Kyle Butler, Catherine Toon, Mike Porter, Mike Zinker, Keith Giles, and Wah. And I am so excited. Just got finished interviewing Rob Bell. That's right, the Rob Bell. For the Heretic Happy Hour podcast. So, we got an echo again. God damn. Hang on for a second. Let's see if we can fix this. I see the problem. How's that? Did that get the echo? Did that get the echo, Mary? Or are we still echoing? Just waiting to find out if somebody gives me some feedback on my feedback. Am I getting an echo? Echo, echo. Perfect. Great. Okay. So anyway, it's time for quantum spirituality. And today, I'd like to talk about creation. And I've been kind of on a tangent lately where I've been more dealing with things that were not so creative. And so I want to kind of turn it back, because the thing about the quantum field is that the quantum field has always existed. But there are things that show up in the quantum field that are indicative of something having happened. In other words, something excited the field. And so in this particular case, that when humanity was created and introduced to the quantum field, which is the omnipresence of love, that there were discrete occurrences that manifested themselves as both waves and particles. Waves, you have to understand, are energy. It's how energy flows. And particles actually represent something physical. But as I mentioned before, that humanity is both a wave and a particle. Why? Because we are spirit, which is eternal. That's an energy that animates us. But we are also particles. We show up and we have, we do something. We're actors in this field. So here's the interesting thing, that when creation was created, God stepped out of eternity into the finite nothingness, said something, and created everything. And I've said before, just for the sake of kind of keeping everybody caught up, is that God is love. And therefore, everything that is made that we can perceive in the observable universe is made of love. Because God is love. God only had herself as a raw material when she spoke everything into existence. So that means that everything is made of love. But this is the one thing that, man, when I thought about this, I got really excited, because it took me back to my childhood. And I remember, as many of you do, the very first time I felt like I was in love. Oh boy, oh boy. When I saw this just was a game changer for me, because when I fell in love for the first time, it was all about flowers, and I like to draw and paint. And so I would draw and paint. I would write poetry. I'd never written poetry, but I wrote poetry, and all of these things. I got excited and I got creative, because that's how you know that love is really in a thing, when you begin to create. See, listen, to duplicate or replicate or to follow a pattern doesn't require love. Now, it may require love for the action of doing it. In other words, like if you work on an assembly line where they make cars, you might actually love the process of making cars, but the car itself was the product of love for some engineer, for some designer. That's where the thought of this car originally manifests. So here's the thing: you might have love for the product, but the love that conceived the thing. It's just like, uh, my wife loves me, my kids love me, but then my parents, they conceive me, so they love me in a different way. So, but we get really, really creative because love creates. And this is my premise tonight, is that when you are truly operating in love, creativity just flows from you. And people will say, I've heard this said by many, that they'll say, well, Derek, I'm not really a creative person. Creativity is not my thing. I'm more into working with my hands, or I'm more toward, doing this thing or that thing. And stay with me here for a minute, because everybody is a creator. And I'll tell you why you're a creator: because your creator is a creator, and you are created in the image of the creator. And even though you may not want to create cars or airplanes or computers, or you may not be into creating paintings or sculptures or any kind of physical art, or you may not be a musician and you may not be a writer, but somewhere in you is the ability, the capacity, and dare I say the need to create. And I think that this is kind of where humanity gets off the rails, because we're taught to fit into boxes. We're taught that I'm going to grow up, I'm going to be an accountant, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a fireman, I'm going to be a nurse, I'm going to be a teacher, whatever. I'm going to be a football player. And everybody gets put into these niches, and without regard for the creative side. Now, mind you, if you're a musician, you might be a musician, and you might be a mathematician. Heck, Richard Feynman, the renowned physicist, was also a drummer. Fun fact. And so a lot of people who have these, they have creative inputs, which is more right brain, and they also have left brain, or more or cerebral kind of things, right? So the problem is that when part of humanity is stifled under the auspices of conformity, that's why human beings lived such unfulfilled lives. Because at some point, y'all, listen, you need to do some woodworking, you need to do some painting, you need to do some writing, some singing, something. There has to be something creative in you, because you are made of love, and love by nature creates. I believe that the Big Bang, as we know it, as a scientific construct, that the Big Bang was just this concentration of love that became so densely packed and so undeniable that it simply had to blow up. And when it blew up, things started creating. Things started coming together. And I don't believe any of this is by accident. I believe in divine design. I believe that there is an intelligent creator behind everything. So this creator had to think, wow, in a big macro sense, let me paint these galaxies and galaxial clusters and all of these different phenomenon in space, nebula and quasars, pulsars, and all of this stuff. Let's create all, and then went from the macro to the micro, which is things that exist at the quantum level, and then somewhere in between, hey, we show up. You know, something gets into the quantum field and it excites the quantum field so that enough waves and particles come together that produce us. And so it's this love that actually spawns creation. You know, it's funny, like I said this before when I talked about the field being excited, and that's how like babies are born, because literally, in order for you to be born, chances are somebody had to be excited. You know, and it may or may not have been love, but the creative part is there. You follow what I'm saying? There is that this thing we call love is such a profound and such a powerful thing that it simply can't be bottled up. You know, it's funny, like, again, going back to your first love, your puppy love, when you fell in love for the first time, you felt like there was something inside of you that if you couldn't get it out, you just burst. That's how, at least that's how I felt. And a lot of people I talked to, that's how they felt. You're just so full of this power, this energy, this flow. And if you don't get it out, you're like, oh my God, if I don't do something with this, I'm gonna die. And so we write poetry and we write music and all of these other things. You know, a lot of the great musicians in the world, there was some person that sparked their fancy and got them going, and that was what got them into, you know, into music. You know, I was heard that Ray Parker Jr., the guy that composed Ghostbusters, among other songs, Ray Parker Jr. was an athlete. He was a basketball player, and he broke his leg. And while his leg was healing, he learned how to play the guitar. But as he's sitting out on the porch playing the guitar, he discovered that more girls were showing up to watching him play the guitar than they were showing up to play basketball. And the rest, as they say, is history. And again, this is a guy that creates, and you could tell that there is just love in what he does. And that's amazing to me. You know, like I was thinking about the Dodge Viper, a car. I'm gonna pick. I like picking on cars, but the guy who designed the Viper is a guy named Ralph Giles, and Ralph was he's an African American man, and a fairly young man, is a good deal younger than I am, but there was something in him, this passion about cars, and this Viper was like his magnum opus. And when he presented it to Bob Lutz, who was the president of Chrysler at the time, you know, Lutz green lighted it because he was a car guy, and also Lutz was a creator. So when, you know how they say in the hood, game recognizes game, you know, Bob Lutz recognized Ralph Giles, and the Viper came into being. And of course, nothing's ever quite that simple. There's a lot of other nuances to it, but the point is that we are created. And somebody would finish that sentence by saying, to give God glory. And I'm going to tell you something. God doesn't need glory. If you think about it, God created everything. So what could you possibly do to glorify God? I don't know. Maybe live. Maybe breathe. Maybe sing. Maybe dance. It isn't being in church every Sunday. It isn't reading your Bible every day. It isn't any of that. It's no religious thing. You know, listen, we're not created to give God glory. What we're created to do is to love, just like God loves. And if we love like God loves, we'll create like God creates. Now, of course, people say, well, Derek, you can't create the cosmos and you can't create a timeline. And you're right. I can't create any of that stuff. However, I can frame my own world. I can determine what I allow into my eye gate, my ear gate. I can dictate what I speak, and I can dictate what I do with my mind, with my hands, with my heart. I control all of this. And in doing that, I am framing my own world. I am dictating the terms of my own atmosphere. Now, granted, there are things that happen. There are situations and circumstances that are external to us that influence our situation, but they don't dictate it. And that's a big difference. So when we allow things to influence, we're basically taking raw material that we have at our disposal to create our world. And then within our world, we begin to create things. Somebody had to create this computer. Somebody had to create this phone. Somebody had to create this microphone, and so on and so on and so on. We are created to create. Somebody had to, I have paintings in my office here. Somebody painted these paintings. We are created to create. I love music. I love all kinds of music. And listen, somebody had to create these people to create. None of this is by accident. All of this, and I'm not going to say that anything is orchestrated either, because again, God is not some puppeteer or narcissist that has to have everything his or her way. That's not it. It's like we're created with all of this potential, and it's like, look at what my child can do. You know, it's like you look at your children. I look at my sons and I say, you know, I just want them to be healthy, happy, and at peace. That's it. That's the only thing that I hope for them. What they do to get there is another matter. That's on them. It's up to them to frame and to create their own worlds. It's not up to me to decide. Just like God doesn't dictate to us how we frame or we create our world. And it's so exciting to say that we get to be co-laborers, co-creators in this thing with God. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. We get to do that because we are heirs to all that he or she has. And because of that, we are God. We are the physical expression and manifestation of God. This is what the man Jesus came to show us. He came to show us our humanity, where it converges with our divinity. And that when we acknowledge and accept and walk in our divinity with our humanity, that then and there we begin to see the miraculous. That's powerful. And again, you only get this when you begin to look at the whole of things at the subatomic level. I have to see things, and here's the funny thing. We were talking about this in the conversation with Rob Bell, and I'm not going to give it away, but at the quantum level, when we observe things at the quantum level, we actually change things at the quantum level because observation influences at the quantum level. So when we take a look at the most delicate, finite, picayune, minuscule, microscopic things of living, that by doing that we actually influence it. That we can either positively or negatively influence things at the quantum level by the level of things that we are expressing from our own spirit being. So when we operate in this spiritual realm, and listen, people say, "Oh, well, you gotta live by the spirit and not by the flesh." Listen, you as long as you're breathing, as long as this meat bag is pumping air and fluid in your body, you're never going to be free of the flesh. However, if you want to be truly spiritual, you're not going to find your spirituality in a book. You're not going to find it in a building. Where you're going to find your spirituality is understanding love. And when you understand love at its most elemental components, empathy, compassion, and I've added a third, I call it joy. Because joy doesn't care about situations or circumstances. Joy is a constant that supersedes conditions and circumstances. And so when you are truly operating in joy or truly operating in love, you have empathy for humanity, you have compassion for humanity, and you have joy for humanity. And here's what happens, that the person who operates in love is the person who has the greatest influence. This is the person who people are attracted to when they walk into the room. It is the person who walks in love. It is the person who has that confidence, the confidence that comes from having empathy and compassion for humanity, and has joy that supersedes the circumstances of their life, that when they come in, they actually change the atmosphere. You know, there are a couple of things that stars, that when they show up in a celestial neighborhood, that they begin to produce light and heat, and that if the planetary bodies are of the right makeup and they're in what they call the Goldilocks zone, which is where it's just right for living as we understand it, then what happens is that now you have something that's producing life. Now, the flip side of that is you have what happens when a star begins to die, and it implodes upon itself, and that creates what they call a black hole. And the black hole is, depending on how you look at it, it could be considered the garbage collector of the universe, or it could be the fountain from which new life springs forth. Because again, what happens is that enough energy gets into a black hole that it explodes and expands and produces a quasar. Don't ask me all the mechanics of it, but that's like what happens. So there's life-giving energy, and then there's life-sucking energy. You can either be someone who puts something into the field in order to take something out synergistically from the field, or you could just be a field sucker. You're just going in there and stealing energy, and that's not what we're created to do. We're created to create. Listen, in real estate, they have this thing, it's called highest best use. What is the highest best use for a piece of property? And from that's how they develop zoning laws and things like that. The highest best use of humanity is to create. That when we create gadgets, gizmos, industries, buildings, chemicals, biological things, we create tools for carpentry, for medicine, for engineering. We create. And let me tell you something. I want to share something with you, and this is going to really help somebody who's listening, that you, yes, you are a creator. You have the capacity, the ability, and dare I say, the responsibility to create. And what will happen is that when humanity begins to tap into this creative zone, then we begin to also tap into what love really is. And see, and watch this. It becomes almost like the holy grail of physics, which is the perpetual motion machine, or the perpetual energy device, that just as much energy that comes out of the device goes into the device, so it's self-propelling. And that's what happens when we tie into love. We tie into love and we create. We get so full of the components of love that we begin to burst forth like the Big Bang, and we create. And as we create, we're spreading love. We're spreading love throughout humanity because we're giving something to humanity of ourselves. And what happens is that love flows back into you because people want to connect with what, listen, and here's the thing. Everybody who has a creative streak, and that's everybody. Everybody has the creative ability that when you begin to create, you're going to find somebody who's going to partner with that creation. When you do it in love. When you do it in love, somebody is going to show up to partner with what you're creating. And when you do that, that creates the perpetual motion machine. You're taking in love and you're putting love out. You're putting love out, you're taking love in. It's a great big wheel, a wheel within a wheel. It keeps on giving. And that is so damn exciting. Man, I just want to tell you, pick up a pencil today. Sit down at a keyboard today. either a musical one or a mechanical one. Do something, cook something. I don't care what it is. Find something. Find your muse. Is your muse your spouse? I don't know. Is your muse your child? I don't know. Is your muse your parent? I don't know. Is it your neighbor? I don't know. But find it. Find this muse. And what you'll find is that you're going to find a reservoir, a fountainhead of love that you never knew was in you. And when you tap into this, y'all just hear me, the magic will happen. I promise you it will. But listen, you have to try. And if you're not sure, ask the universe for wisdom. It's like in the Bible, it says that anyone who asks for wisdom will get it without upbraiding. Listen, get your wisdom. Find out what it is that you have the capability and the ability to do. And then go tinker with that. Tinker with it until, and if the thing you tinker with doesn't work, well, go tinker with something else. That's the whole beauty of life, is that we're supposed to be creators, tinkerers. Go tinker with something. Figure out how it works. Reverse engineer some stuff. And I'm telling you, you will begin to embark on one of the most exciting adventures that your life has ever known. And so that's all I have. I hope that was encouraging. Because, listen, you're taking a time out on a Tuesday night to talk with me. And I want to make sure that I'm making the most of your time. So I want to make sure that you're encouraged, that you're entertained, that you're edified, and that you take away something that allows you to be better. Because at the end of the day, what I want you to do, listen, I'm not doing anything because I want you to think something of me or feel some kind of way about me. I'm not important. How you feel about yourself is what matters to me. How do you feel about yourself? And I hope that you feel pretty damn good right now. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to hit me up at www.derekday.com. Click the link called contact and it'll open up a form. You fill it out and it'll send me an email. You can also hit me up on Instagram or Twitter. My handle is Derek E. Day. That's DERRICKEDAY. And you could also check out videos on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe, okay? Because that's how it works. I need your likes and I need your subscriptions and I love your comments. So please hit me up on YouTube. And for those of you who haven't heard of it, I'm part of the Heretic Happy Hour with Keith Giles, Katie Valentine, and Matthew DiStefano. And tonight we interviewed Rob fucking Bell. So when that comes out, when that one drops, that you don't want to miss it. That was off the chain. If you could tell, I'm a little bit of a Rob Bell fanboy. But anyway, and then also make sure you check out my blog, Love Minus Religion, on Patheos. You don't want to miss that. I'm working on an article. I'm hoping to. I wanted to get it done. I wanted to have it done yesterday, but anyway, as it goes, man, I got work and a bunch of other stuff I have to do. So until the next time, which will be Freeology Friday, which, if you haven't heard, Aaron Tomlinson will be my co-host forever and ever. Amen. Maybe. But we're going to have a hell of a good time. And we're going to go at a lot of the religious junk that you've been fed, because it's going to be all about freedom. That's what Freeology Friday is all about. So until next time, may you be happy. May you be well. May you be full of peace. Namaste. I see the light in you. Namaste. I see the God in you. Peace.